conference I told the joke, the different types of medicines, and nothing is perfect. Every medicine has some problem. They say that Ayurvedic medicine is great, but it doesn't work great for acute problems. If somebody has a heart attack, somebody has an accident, Ayurveda may not have the best answer. Allopathic medicine is best for those emergency cases. It works, but of course it gives you side effects. And then there's homeopathic medicine. It doesn't have any side effects, but we don't know if it works at all. So the best approach could be the integrative medicine. You should be able to use whichever medicine works for that particular problem. And I think Risha is one of the best panelists to talk about that, because she has a practice of Ayurveda and physical therapy combined. She is, as you know, is a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine and is also a physical therapist. She is also resident of Lama, and she's also going to tell us more about, I would like her to give some examples where she has actually used the integrated medicine, used both, and they have been effective.
Sure. Thank you. So I will be, we heard a fabulous research presentation from Dr. Anuj Kumar, and I kind of dip my hands in both bowls here. So I have been trained as with a doctoral degree in physical therapy, so I'm very, very familiar and well versed with this aspect of research, but also having an Ayurvedic background. We've all done puzzles as little kids, and with that Ayurvedic background, I always wonder, can you fit a square into a circle? Can you do that? So I've always felt that for Ayurveda, these may be very standardized research practices, but for sometimes I feel for Ayurveda, we need something which is more catered to Ayurvedic principles and then do research with it. And then perhaps we might get better evidence for Ayurveda. But that's just things that go on through my head. And I hope, I'm not a researcher, but I hope that one day, people who do research with Ayurveda are able to come up with tools and also with other, rubrics or other things that they can bring this to the forefront. We have Nadi Tarangini here, and they are doing something on the pulse, which can become a very good, research source for pulse diagnosis in Ayurveda. That is one excellent example of how we can use Ayurveda in research. So, having said that, I'm going to say a few things about evidence-based medicine, integrative medicine, and IEBM, which is integrative evidence-based medicine. So, evidence-based medicine, is based on solid clinical trials, systematic reviews, clinical expertise, patient values and preferences. Integrative medicine is based on whole person health, mind, body and spirit, which blends Western medicine with complementary and alternative medicine. Here you are looking at prevention and wellness. Here you are also looking at therapeutic relationship between the clinician and the patient, and you are also looking at individualized holistic treatment programs. So they both have a different role to play. In IEBM, which is integrative evidence-based medicine, you are combining both. You have a solid evidence of whatever you are giving your client, your patient, and you also have that integrative aspect, that holistic aspect of treating the patient on a very different level, from a mind, body, spirit level. So there are always challenges to integrative evidence-based medicine. If you want to do evidence-based medicine, especially when it comes to Ayurveda, because I'm going to focus on Ayurveda, and not just Ayurveda, all other complementary therapies, there is very limited high-quality evidence available, as we also saw in Dr. Kumar's presentation. It's very little. There are very little high-quality evidence. There is a need for standardized research methods for non-traditional treatments. No, we do not have standardized research methods for non-traditional treatment. So that needs to happen. There are very unique things to Ayurveda: pulse, tongue. There is Dhatu Parikshan. We don't have anything standardized for all of that. We need to have something standardized for that, and then we can do research with Ayurveda. Also, we have to, with integrative medicine, also trying to integrate multidisciplinary teams that come together and treat the patient. So, we have to keep that aspect in mind as well, and that can sometimes be quite a challenge in integrated evidence-based medicine. Now, what is the goal of integrative evidence-based medicine? So, we want to create a balanced, a scientifically informed, and a very compassionate approach to treating our patients, to treating our clients. So that is the basic advantage of this. Now, I would like to give you an example here. Coming from a PT background, physical therapy background, we see a lot of patients with chronic pain. So for chronic pain management, we have a standardized approach, which is the conventional approach, analgesics, muscle relaxants, perhaps nerve blocks, injections in this, wherever the pain is, and such. That is, and physical therapy, of course. So those are all the conventional aspects of treatment. Now, what are the complementary aspects? Now, we need complementary aspects which are also evidence-based. So for chronic pain management, acupuncture has a lot of meta-analysis to manage chronic low back pain. Mindfulness has also been established as a complementary treatment, evidence-based, which has evidence which supports decrease in pain perception and also improvement in quality of life. So mindfulness meditation also plays a big role there. Yoga or Tai Chi improves flexibility, reduces pain, improves mood, and this is all evidence-based RCTs that are there available for that. So basically these studies published in journals like JAMA Internal Medicine and Pain show that combining mindfulness or acupuncture with standard care reduces pain and also reduces opioid dependence. So when you combine CAM therapies, complementary and alternative medicine therapies, along with standard care, there is definitely improvement in how the patient feels, how the patient does, and reduction in opioid dependence, and obviously reduction in their symptoms. So that is one example of chronic pain management with integrative and evidence-based medicine. Next is, another example is in cancer support, and I'm using that because I was participating, I was doing that study at UCSF, and that got published, and that study was on 4-month whole systems Ayurvedic nutrition and lifestyle for breast cancer survivors. Okay? So when that study, it was a pilot done at UCSF, and I was seeing all the breast cancer survivors there, and we were utilizing Ayurvedic tools, we were utilizing yoga, we were utilizing marma therapy, and some dietary changes. Now we have to understand that when studies come out of big institutions like UCSF, there are a lot of restrictions, so we could only do diet-based and lifestyle-based modification study as a pilot. No herbs were involved. Okay? So in that study, there was improvement in symptoms, emotional function, cognitive function, and also global health and well-being. So that was a pilot, and of course there are more studies are going on beyond that at UCSF. More cohorts are happening. So basically there is a lot of integration happening at universities and with Ayurveda too, I mean, acupuncture is really popular, mindfulness is really popular, Ayurveda is also getting in there, slowly but surely. At UCLA, at Susan Samuel Lee Center in Irvine, at UCSF, at Stanford, everybody is establishing some sort of Ayurvedic care units and yoga units there for research purposes. So, things are moving in the right direction. What would I like to focus on now is the role of Ayurveda in integrative evidence-based medicine. How can we integrate Ayurveda? We are not in India, we are in the United States. So how can we integrate Ayurveda in evidence-based medicine? The philosophy of Ayurveda can be integrated. Okay? Now, it aligns with integrative medicine's holistic, patient-centered approach. What is the philosophy of Ayurveda that will align with the patient-centered approach? Prakriti, right? Ayurveda has a focus on individualized care or Prakriti or body constitution, prevention and wellness that can align very well with that aspect of evidence-based medicine. Second is therapeutics. Of course, we do not have a lot of clinically validated practices and herbs which could fall in that category. But if we did, they could complement pharmacologic and physical therapies in Ayurveda. So from a therapeutic standpoint, herbs, herbal formulations, diet, yoga, meditation, massage, detox therapies, everything would fall in that category. Next is lifestyle medicine. So evidence-based medicine supports evidence-based prevention strategies for chronic disease. From an Ayurvedic standpoint, what do we have? Anybody? Dinacharya, very good. Dinacharya, seasonal regimens, Ritucharya, Dinacharya daily regimens, Ritucharya seasonal regimens, diet and a balanced diet, all that can fall under lifestyle medicine. Then we have mind-body integration, right? What do we have for mind-body integration? We have, it's not Ayurveda, but yoga and allied therapies all fall under that category. So there is a strong clinical evidence which supports benefits for stress, anxiety, pain, for cardiovascular health. So we could incorporate Ayurveda there. Okay? So since I'm talking about this mind-body integration, even from an Ayurvedic standpoint, we know that we have how many koshas? Everybody, it looks like everybody's sleeping. How many koshas? 5. Which are the first 3? Annamaya, Pranamaya and Manomaya kosha. Pranamaya kosha is between Annamaya and Manomaya kosha. Pranamaya kosha connects Annamaya and Manomaya kosha. Pranamaya connects your physical body and your mind, Manomaya kosha. What is the best therapy that you can do that controls the body and mind? Pranayama. Best evidence for stress and anxiety. Okay, so that can be used. Research integration is, we do not have that many RCTs. We do not have systematic reviews as of now in Ayurveda. But like I said, you cannot fit a square into a circle. We have to have something, or we have to have the right tools, and then we can do these studies. And lastly, one other challenge that I would like to talk about here is everybody is familiar with ashwagandha. It recently got very popular, right, in the media, as we know. So ashwagandha is one herb which has meta-analysis there is a meta-analysis which shows that ashwagandha reduces cortisol levels, which then reduces anxiety and stress. Alright, so Now my question is, I mean that's great, okay? I can tell that, oh, there is a meta-analysis, oh, you should take ashwagandha for stress and cortisol. Great. But how many of us outside of Ayurveda practitioners know that I would probably not use ashwagandha for somebody who's kapha with ama? How many of us know that ashwagandha is guru? I'm talking about the gunas now, right? Such a guru herb can you use when somebody has ama? If ashwagandha has that guru guna, should I combine it with shunti so that I can use it for a kapha person and also use for somebody who has kapha and ama, right? So these kind of things are very specific to Ayurveda. How many of us know that yes, it reduces cortisol levels, it reduces stress and anxiety, but if you take a lot of ashwagandha at night, your blood sugar levels will drop in the morning immediately. Okay? So now if you have low blood sugar, is that good for you? So all these studies need to be done, all that processing needs to happen. So I will call this the end of my talk, but that is what I want you to leave all of you with. We have to think about research, we have to think about RCTs, systematic reviews, and all of that, but we cannot leave what Ayurveda is, you cannot leave the science of Ayurveda. You have to take that with you into research.